Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Marvel's Moon Knight follows Stephen Grant, a guy suffering from dissociative identity disorder without even realizing it, chalking it up to sleepwalking and a real complicated method of flirting.
I'm at the restaurant for steak. It's steak time.
Yeah, I ate steak by myself, thanks. 2 days ago.
Nice game, bro. She gets her steak time, and then you get your mistake time.
What day is it today?
Sunday, sir.
No. Is it... Really?
The first episode confirms that Stephen's dreams are not fantasies, but really his alternate identity, Marc Spector, taking control of his body and taking him to strange, dangerous situations, yet all of it real. But how real is it? Because Moon Knight, both the source material and the series it looks like, is carefully designed to leave us in a state of uncertainty over basic reality. That everything presented through the eyes of this unreliable narrator, not just the more obvious ghosts and visions, but even simple words printed on paper, might be an illusion. I'm gonna break down all the weird little glitches you might have missed to explain how I don't think we can really trust anything we're seeing right now. By the way, the best way to support our channel is to get our new Moon Knight inspired Tomb of the Moon God shirt, part of our limited edition latest obsession line, which gives you the added option to write in a custom shout out for our Moon Knight after shows. Get that over at newrockstarsmerch.com. So while promoting this series, Layla actress May Kalamaui pitched it as
the tone is like Fight Club meets Indiana Jones.
Well, the Indiana Jones parallels with the mysterious golden relics pointing the way to the ancient world are clear, but Fight Club is famously a story of an unreliable narrator unaware that his best friend Tyler Durden is actually himself, a twist hinted at throughout the movie by subtle visual clues that David Fincher hid in the imagery. Similarly, I think if you re-watch Moon Knight episode 1 closely, so much of Stephen Grant's journey, even when you discount the obvious fantastical leaps and lapses the episode calls attention to, so many little things that you overlook and take for granted, these things do not add up or make logical sense. It's actually possible that much of, if not all, of this man's waking life as Stephen Grant is a waking fantasy. Actually, in a recent press conference, Ethan Hawke even confirmed this, saying the director, Mohammed, was really embracing Stephen's mental illness as a way to create an unreliable narrator. And once you've broken the prism of reality, everything that the audience is seeing is from a skewed point of view. And that's really interesting for the villain, because am I even being seen as I am? And by the way, thanks to Marvel for inviting us to listen in on that junket. So every morning, Stephen talks to his mother on the phone, a mother who probably doesn't exist. He thanks her for sending him postcards, leaving us wondering who is sending these postcards. Perhaps it's the Marc identity sending the postcards to keep Stephen in the cycle. Either way, Stephen is used to living an incomplete, delusional life. He teaches a little girl in the museum about the Egyptian burial rituals.
And only the worthiest would be allowed to pass through the field of reeds.
And did it suck for you? Getting rejected from the field of reeds?
Well, that don't make sense, because I'm not dead, am I?
Stevie.
Am I?
Yeah, that second little am I, which Oscar Isaac discreetly slips in, tells us that even Stephen is questioning his reality, not sure whether he is alive or dead. That even this simple moment in the museum could be the fantasy of a dying man or a deceased soul trapped in an underworld. Now, Stephen repeatedly points out historical inaccuracies with the merch they sell in the gift shop.
Don't even know what this has to do with Egypt, really. It's like, they didn't have that back then, did they? No. They're like figs and dates.
And then later, while doing inventory with Donna,
The Ennead, you know, like the supergroup of Egyptian gods. You know, you got Horus, Osiris, Tefnut, Shu.
Stop.
But there's been a major blunder because they've got 7 gods here and the Ennead has 9.
Now, as I pointed out in the breakdown, Stephen is correct that the Ennead of Egyptian mythology has 9 members. They are the sun god Atum, Shu and Tefnut, deities of air and moisture, Geb and Nut, gods of the earth and the sky, and their children, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. That is 9. Then, not often, but in some interpretations, some historians will include in the Ennead a 10th member, the son of Osiris, Horus. But Horus would make it 10. However, Stephen mentions Horus first in his listing, which is just odd. Like anyone who is fact-checking someone on the 9 members of the Ennead would not mention Horus first. Also, this poster clearly shows the name of the Egyptian deity Hathor, who is not part of the Ennead. Now, Hathor is a very important deity to mythology, the consort to Horus, the sun god Ra, representation of femininity, but is just not considered part of the Ennead per se. Now, throughout the episode, various shots of Stephen show him through reflected surfaces, mirrors, puddles on the ground, but there's one shot in the park at nighttime after leaving his street performer buddy where we see Steven thinking we're seeing him in real life, but when a leaf lands on the puddle, it reveals what we thought was real to be an illusion, a reflection of real life, perhaps cluing us in to everything we think being real is actually fake. Later on, we see a textbook on screen in close-up showing what we think is the lineage of the gods of the Ennead, but the listed order is just all mixed up. Osiris is listed at the top, then his son Horus is listed beneath him, and then beneath Horus is Adam, which would definitely not be the case. And then also, again, Hathor is listed there on the Ennead page, despite not being a member of the Ennead. Now, maybe this lineage is not depicting the exact members of the Ennead, and maybe this is a historical interpretation of Egyptian mythology that I'm not aware of, but overall, Steven's actually strikes me as the kind of thing that in our society, especially on social media nowadays, a lot of self-described buffs on various subjects. Like, I will admit I've done this in the past during various casual trivia nights. Some folks might know a bit about a subject. Maybe they took a college class in it or they watched a YouTube video on the subject. And then afterwards they will go around confidently correcting others as if they are an expert with a degree in the subject, despite when you actually look it up, they are objectively wrong on the facts. So are we looking at production design mistakes made by the prop designers? Perhaps. And in my experience doing these kind of breakdowns, these kind of inconsistencies when they come up are best attributed to incompetence rather than conspiracy. But we also know that this series was carefully researched. And the special thanks they credit Egyptology consultant Rami Rahmani, a documentarian and expert in Egyptian history with a ton of credits to his name. This is the guy. So if these are mistakes, I think they're intentional. I think they're Berenstain glitches in the eyes of an unreliable narrator who, in his self-perception fantasy, is an underappreciated expert in Egyptology, but in reality, like most average folks, he's got some of his facts mixed up. So later when Steven returns from the Alps, he begins to catch on to the glitches in his life. His goldfish Gus now has regrown his fin mysteriously, obviously replaced in the past few days that Steven's been out, and he realizes that time has leapt forward a few days, and of course, he starts perceiving his alter ego Marc and the ghostly deity of Khonshu. But then we get this crazy scene in the elevator. Obviously, seeing ghosts, Marc's perception is very much being distorted by the haunted nature of this scene. But specifically, the way the elevator moves makes no sense. Steven hits the button for the ground floor repeatedly. We see that. And then the lift descends, stopping on the 3rd floor despite no one summoning it. Okay. But then it goes down to the 2nd floor where presumably it was summoned by that old woman whom Steven saw as Khonshu. But if that woman was at the far end of the hallway, she could not have summoned the elevator. And then at this point, the elevator should have still been headed down to the ground. The way if you're at the top floor of the building, hit the button for the ground floor, and if people join you on other floors on the way down, it still goes all the way down, even if someone accidentally gets on who's trying to go up. But instead, this elevator, for no reason, goes back up to the 5th floor. Now sure, Steven and this woman do comment that this building has some faulty wiring, but either way, this is a magic elevator that follows the rules of Steven's nightmare, not the rules of reality. So then after this Khonshu jump scare, Steven wakes up on a city bus. He exits this bus, but then he turns around to see Arthur Harrow back on that bus, right near where Steven was previously standing. So what was going on this bus before Steven woke up? If Harrow was stalking Steven, why didn't he approach him when they were both a few feet away from each other on that bus? And then at the end of the episode, when the jackal chases Steven through the museum, as the jackal touches the museum surfaces that are seen in the main hall, it leaves no visible scratches or marks at all. Now sure, in the back rooms, plenty of stuff gets knocked around. It kicks the door open, it unhinges some of the light panels. When the thing actually tears open the bathroom door, we don't see it happen. We only hear it from Steven's perspective as he transitions into Moon Knight. Now obviously, we know this jackal's a CGI character who isn't really interacting with the space anyway, and I point out in the breakdown how in the profile shot of Steven's transformation, the mummy wrappings are not reflected covering his neck and shoulders in the mirror. His clothes blow back, but we don't see the wrappings themselves in that mirror shot until we cut to the wide shot. I'm just saying that there is enough in this episode to suggest a lot of this could be in Steven's mind, and I present all of this evidence to you to make up your own mind as you watch this series. And as you watch, do so with a skeptical eye, because by the end of this, we may all be kicking ourselves saying that the whole time Biggie was right.
It was all a dream.
Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss. Follow New Rockstars. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.